Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the top of the show, which we obviously all know, is Dolly Parton's Rockstar Part 2. I'm sure you tuned in last week for the first part of our track by track for the Dolly Parton album. We just do have a couple of music news items. So I'm going to hand this over to Joy first.
So there's just and this actually got released yesterday. It's a little bit of Michael Jackson music news. Mm-hmm. So Michael Jackson's first ever studio recording is being reprinted and put out. So you can buy a digital copy of the 1967's Big Boy. It's the wonderful, but spelled like number one version during a 4-day sale starting today. And it's just like an exclusive. And it's the first time you heard Michael Jackson's voice on any tape or recording. So they re-released it and it's coming out for people. And it's part of a limited release. It's done. This release is being done in collaboration with the song's owner, with Record Pool, and then Swedish blockchain-based music and royalty marketing. I don't know what that means, but the Swedes apparently own this song, Tim, which doesn't surprise me in any way. It's going to be $25. The open edition package includes Big Boy, wonderful version, access through another blocks player. I don't know what that means. Images of master tapes and agreements, downloadable things you can get, vinyl B-side, including Michael the Lover and My Girl, and just some other things. Whatever another block is, apparently they have their own player. News to me, but if you're interested in it, it sounded kind of cool. You can also spend $100 and get the limited edition, which includes everything in the open edition, along with the newly designed artwork and 9 additional songs. That stem from sessions in 1967. And they said they includes things like Big Boy, We Don't Have to Be Over 21, You've Changed, Tracks of My Tears, Lonely Heart, Saturday Night at the Movies, Stormy Monday, and Under the Boardwalk. Which of all of these, Tim, I would be really, really curious to hear Michael Jackson. And I don't know if the Jackson 5 is on all of these. They may be. Under the Boardwalk. Under the Boardwalk, Joy. Under the Boardwalk. That was hard for me to say. And Tracks of My Tears. I think those would be cool to hear.
They would be interesting here. And so that's a question I was going to ask. Is it's just Michael Jackson solo, not with his brothers?
Well, they're saying it doesn't say. I'm assuming it might be just him, but it does say this was the first time Michael Jackson's voice was put on tape and recording from the Jackson 5. So the Jackson 5 has something to do with the Big Boy song, wonderful version, which I'm not familiar with. I'm just going to be transparent. I mean, it doesn't sound like it was produced in any way, like put out to the masses. And if it was on the B side of something. So I would assume, and I've heard their version of My Girl, it does have the Jackson 5. I know that, but I don't know if it might be a mix of both. But it sounds cool either way. And then like the owner of the company was just like, I'm a big Michael Jackson fan myself. So I just wanted to put it out there.
Interesting. I think we got to the point where at some point, every recording ever is going to be available digitally on some platform or another.
Yeah. And they're using words and albums that I don't even know what they mean anymore. I'm like, what is downloadable song stems? What does that even mean?
I can tell you what song stems are. So when you multi-track record something and you record all the various parts, the drums, the bass, the vocals, the backing vocals, guitar, or whatever, they're known as the stems.
Okay.
So what you can probably do is download each element separately if you wanted to create your own mix or do whatever you want with it.
Okay, that is pretty cool, actually. See, I wouldn't have thought of them as stems in my mind. I would have just thought of like layers. Like that's how I imagine it visually. Not that songs are visual, but you know what I mean, Tim. I think of it as like building. I've never heard it called stems, but that would be useful, especially if like you wanted to use a drum track or whatever. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, normally if you're doing a remote multi-track recording thing, someone will say, "Oh, can you send me the stems?"
Oh, well, you can tell how many multi-million-dollar recordings I've done, Tim. Anyway, all right. Well, there was my music news for the beginning of the show.
Okay, so the music news I have surrounds the band Kiss. Now, we've spoken about Kiss a few times, and Kiss recently completed their End of the Road tour. Their very last Kiss show, supposedly, It was on Saturday, December the 2nd at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Now, they've had many farewell tours before, but they're claiming this is it. They are done. And this tour got delayed for a year or two because of the COVIDs. So they finished later than they wanted to finish. But apparently that is it for Kiss. They are done. However, Kiss, the money-making machine of Kiss, cannot stop.
Yep.
So they've got into partnership with Pop House Entertainment, which is the Swedish entertainment company that put ABBA Voyage together. And as you know, we probably discussed this once before. You remember when I said they're on tour? And I said, I bet they've gone to London to see that ABBA Voyage thing, to see how they can monetize Kiss. Mm-hmm. So they are reborn again as avatars. They have a digital legacy that will live on forever.
They're NFTs now.
Yeah. It says the band transformation into avatars will ensure their immortalization whilst pushing the boundaries of rock and roll performance, as Kiss have done all the way through their career today. The avatar performance will feature Kiss as a fantasy-based superheroes and will provide a glimpse of just of the many and varied ways in which Kiss will live on as digital performers through their avatars in the future.
So what's kind of fun about it is, first, I get it, is Kiss. This is what I like about Kiss is they're open and honest about who they are and what they're doing. They're like, no, we're doing this for the money. We're selling the show. It's a stage show. Like, a lot of artists do this behind the scenes and don't admit it, but at least they say what they're doing it for. Yeah,
so the Kiss Army has made them immortal. They're now avatars. They're going to be featuring in, I don't know how many of these shows are going to be going on around the world, but if it's anything like the ABBA Voyage, you have the super high definition screen. They've all been scanned in by Industrial Light and Magic, you know, little dots on their faces and stuff, and I've seen the video of that happening. So they're born as these high definition avatars. So you'll go to the show, you'll have the screen there, but what makes it seem like a real concert is you have a live band. You have fire, you have smoke, you have lights, etc. in a purpose-built theatre. Yeah. So when you're 4 rows from the front, it looks like Kiss is there, and they can play that in as many cities as they like for as long as they like. And they never have to leave
forever.
Yeah, and they never have to leave the house, and they're all good. Now, the only things the hardcore Kiss fans don't like is that the version of the band that's being immortalized isn't the classic lineup. It's not Ace Frehley and Peter Criss. It's the current guitarist and current drummer whose names completely escape me. So as far as this immortalization process is concerned, it is the current lineup of the band. But in the interviews, they said, you know, they couldn't be Kiss without Peter Criss and Ace Frehley, but they wouldn't have carried on without these other two. So they feel they're the ones that should have the kudos of being immortalized forever.
Isn't the guitarist Tommy Thayer or something?
Tommy Thayer, I think it is.
I don't know who the drummer is, but I do know that's the guitarist.
Yes.
There you go, everybody. Sorry. I like Kiss, but I'm not going to say I'm a Kiss expert. There are people out there who are big into the Kiss Army stuff. I am not one of them. Yeah. But I mean, if they're being immortalized during this time period, I understand immortalizing the band that's right now, Tim, in 2023.
Yes.
So I kind of get it. I mean, it's what it currently is, but I also understand plus I like Peter Criss. I always have. He has the best makeup. But with that being said, I mean, I kind of get why they would immortalize them in this moment instead of old school.
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see what this Kiss show is going to be like, where it's going to play. If I had to guess, it's got Vegas written all over it.
Everything Kiss has Vegas written all over it.
Exactly.
We'd be surprised if in 2 years we hear about their residency tour.
Exactly. As digital avatars, they're now immortalized.
Yeah, they're not going to be the ones playing it. It's just a digital avatar of them on repeat in the residency hall.
But you know what was interesting? I watched the whole presentation about this, almost an hour's worth of content, because at the end of their show, they announced this on all the video screens on that last Kiss show, and then it was available on YouTube and their website and stuff like that. But what's interesting, they said the technology has moved on since ABBA Voyage, and to the point now they can bring AI technology involved. And where the ABBA Voyage, for the most part, the show is already rendered, meaning it's effectively a video file they're playing, and then the band are playing along with it. They said the technology has now evolved to the point where they're not rendered before the show. It's rendered live. So they said they can have it where the avatars can now be completely interactive with the audience, where someone in the audience can say, "I love you, Paul." And then the avatar say, "Oh, you too, baby." You know, that stuff can go on now in real time.
But would think about toys and stuff that can interact in that way. So it's not that new, but just using it in that way and being able to know. I'd be curious to see how now AI is the hot topic in my house right now. If you live with Charles Thompson, you hear nothing but talk about AI all day, every day, Tim. So it doesn't shock me in any way. I'm sure Charlie's probably read this article as well, if I know him very well.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. I mean, Gene and Paul they're cranking up the dollar bill printing machine back in their house now.
I wonder what Gene Simmons' net worth is. Let's look it up. I'm just really curious. 400 million. 400 million, Tim. There you go.
There we are. Well, they're not shy about that. It is a business first and foremost, and a band after.
Well, once you reach a certain level, that becomes true of almost everybody, right? I would think. If this is what's keeping the lights on, No,
that's true. That's true. But I mean, a lot of musicians would yes, it's paying the bills and it's making them a lot of money, but they feel that they have some sort of integrity in their music and their songwriting. Kiss is like, this is a money making machine.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. Okay, I'll give you that. For those who don't know, I was writing Tim last night and I was watching The Masked Singer. I won't say anything, but a certain person on there that I was correct about, Tim will tell you. I won't tell you who it was. It's the pineapple tiki looking guy. He said, we were talking about his high-pitched soprano voice, and he said, that's the moneymaker. So that's why I quoted that. That's why it was in my brain. He goes, yeah, this is what keeps the lights on or something.
And as I said to you last night, Joe, the bit that impressed me the most is that you have the means to watch broadcast TV using an antenna or an aerial if you're listening in the UK.
Well, what it was like, different things would come on live TV. Like I like to watch the Macy's Day Parade on Thanksgiving morning, and that stuff's hard to find online. So I one day was in Walmart and there was just an antenna there for like $20. And I mean, it's all digital now anyway, and I live in town, so I just coaxed it right in, Tim. I did it all myself.
We have no method of receiving broadcast TV in this house.
Well, I know you kind of made it your mission. I don't know if I ever told you this, Tim, but I remember the first time, whenever I was at Dish, and the first time they showed me how you could make a coax cable so easy, and they all made us make one. Mm-hmm. And now, I will talk to other people about this, and Charlie, he's made thousands of them. People will be like, you can just make one. And I'm like, yeah, just cut the end off, put the little thing on there. There you go, put it in. It's weird how that works, because they're big spools. Yeah,
the antenna connectors in the UK are different to the ones in the US. Or I should say, the aerial connectors in the UK are different to the antenna connectors in the US. It's a different kind of plug. The ones in the US are what they call an F plug, which has got that little screw thing that goes around the outside. And the UK ones just just push in. And it's a completely different kind of connector. But they're both reasonably easy to make. I think the US ones are easier to make than the UK ones. Yeah,
you just kind of you cut the wire and then there's a little end that goes on it and screws on one side. But the only thing about coax cables is what we generally call them. Tim said F cable. But one thing that I hate about them, Tim, is I hate screwing them on. I absolutely hate putting them on the back of a TV. My hand gets tired. There's always a cable that's right beside it that's too close and you can't get your knuckle by. Never fails. That whoever, I want to go with whatever the UK is using, because it is a pain.
Yes. Well, you could use a small spanner just to do it.
I mean, you could in theory, but who's doing that, Tim? Everybody just putting their hand back there thinking, I can do this. I always just yell, Charlie, put that in there. After I get annoyed after 3 turns. Anyway, this is not a TV show. This isn't a TV show. This is not a podcast about TV. Moving along.
Okay, and then I just had one thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah, one last thing before we get back into the episode and the topic. So Taylor Swift was named Person of the Year by Time magazine. Did you hear about this?
I did. There was a lot of people sharing it on the Facebooks.
And I think quite rightfully so. I am not a Taylor Swift fan. I have not knowingly ever listened to any Taylor Swift music. However, I understand that she is massive. People love her. They love her music. They love her albums. They love her concerts. She had this thing in the cinemas, huge tour, all this kind of stuff going on. So obviously, Person of the Year.
I mean, if there's somebody who the year I could think of, if I put a face to 2023, it would be Taylor Swift. Like,
Absolutely.
it's kind of a dead set. And it's not even, I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan. My friend Molly was on the podcast, as you guys know, is a huge Taylor Swift fan. It keeps me a little bit in the loop. There was like a thing where Taylor did that thing where you go into like the movie theaters and watch the concert, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
And Molly sent me a meme of it's like when your best friend's a Taylor Swift fan and you're not, and it's just like one person just sitting there eating popcorn while they're just yelling beside you. She goes, you coming to support me, but you're not necessarily into it. But I mean, whether it's her relationship, her concert tour, her songs, her albums, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, quite rightfully so. Taylor Swift should be the person of the year on Time magazine. But as I said, I've never knowingly ever heard one of her songs.
I'm sure you've unknowingly heard one at some point in a store or something.
Maybe, but you know, I curate my media experience, so probably not.
I mean, to be fair, and it's not like Tim goes to actual physical stores very often. He's the pre-order and pick it up or get it dropped off kind of person.
Yeah, the only shop I ever really go to is CVS, which is for UK listeners like Boots the Chemist. It's like a
pharmacy
general store type place because there's one right by my work. But outside of that, I'm not going into shops. I'm probably never going to go to Walmart ever again if I can help it.
Now we know why Tim's like one of the few people left that I know never actually caught COVID. So he never went into a store.
Well, I assume I didn't catch COVID. We did a gig and everyone in the band got COVID. And then I, for like 2 days, had the mildest cold that you could ever imagine. And I had a slight headache one day. And then I took the COVID test when the text messages from the guys were going, oh, it's COVID, I got the COVID. So I went and got the test and took it, and it said negative.
I mean, maybe you were just lucky. Maybe you took the test at the wrong time. Maybe you're one of these people that I just avoid. Or maybe you've had it and you just thought it was something else.
It's entirely possible.
I got it last year on Christmas. Remember?
I do remember that.
I literally posted a photo saying, and on Christmas, my true love gave to me COVID.
Yay. Well, I hope you kept the little tester thing and it's hanging on the tree.
No. Because it had germs on it.
It would be a perfect Christmas ornament for your Christmas tree, probably.
I'll just print the picture and put it on an ornament, hang it on the tree. Try I can find it on Facebook. Anyway, so hopefully this year that does not happen, knock on wood.
Well, we keep our fingers and toes crossed for you, Joy.
All right. Ready to get to the episode?
Yeah, so as I said at the very top of the show, this is Dolly Parton's Rockstar Part 2. This album is so long, we couldn't do it in one episode. By the time Joy and I are talking about gas masks and who knows what, this episode would have been 3 hours long. So we are cutting it into 2 parts. So if you haven't heard Part 1, go back and listen to it. This is Part 2. So we're going to start here at track 16. We done tracks 1 to 15 in our first episode. So straight in track 16, this is Keep On Loving You, the classic by REO Speedwagon. Now, this is featuring Kevin Cronin, who is the singer from REO Speedwagon. Mm-hmm. Now, this is like following the standard pattern as a lot of these songs where Dolly sings a verse and the guest singer sings a verse and they sing together in the choruses. Standard fare for this album. But one thing I will say is that they've pitched this up for Dolly. They've pitched it up a tone or two. And it doesn't sound right. And like Kevin Cronin doesn't sound right because he's not singing in the key he normally sings it.
Okay, it's weird you said that because what I said was this is one of my favorite songs, like in general. I love this song in general. But I said, Kevin Cronin surprised me. They sound good together, but his voice sounds off. For some reason, it reminded me a little bit of Kenny Rogers.
Yeah, because normally, especially with male singers, when they get older, it's very common that you drop it down a tone or a semitone. just so it's easier for the singer to sing. And that's very common. And I mean, in rock music, for many years, lots of musicians have tuned their instruments down a semitone because it has a very much a meaner sound to it, but it's easier for the singer to sing. And then you get someone like Sammy Hagar now. He's out there touring with his band. And it's actually tuned down, not a semitone, it's a whole tone drop. So it sounds a little bit different. But of course, when you're 70 plus years old and you want to sing songs you recorded in your 30s, it's the only way you can do it. But this going the other way, where they're pitching it up for Dolly, Kevin Cronin just doesn't sound right on this track.
And what's weird about it is I'm pretty sure the original's just in C major, right? Like, I'm thinking it's in C. So, like, it's kind of weird that I know Dolly has a high-pitched voice, but that's not that low to begin with. So
no, but I mean, as we said, the person who's producing this album, Kent Wells, he's trying to make it as good for Dolly as possible. So this track could have been recorded and Dolly could have put her vocals on it long before Kevin Cronin ever heard it.
I mean, that's possible. And he may have been trying to... What it kind of sounded like to me, Tim, is he was singing it the way he's used to singing it in the key that the original is in, and Dolly's singing it in the new key, and it just doesn't sound right.
And that could be the case, too.
That's the way I heard it, though. I don't know that's 100% true. Because like I said, I think it's in C major. Don't quote me on that. But because it's, I can hear the song in my head. It's not anything crazy. And for those who don't know what song we're talking, gonna keep on loving you. Because so we don't get copyrighted. That song. I know you've heard it on the radio 1,000 times. Everybody has. Unless you're Tim and then you don't own a radio.
Well, I've got 3 radios in the house. None of them are tuned into anything.
Well, I'm just kidding because you said you curate your own track list earlier. But in all seriousness, or in movies, songs been used in 1,000 years. I liked it though. I actually put on my notes, Tim, I enjoyed this one. But to be fair, I really just liked this song, and the entire time it was on, I was singing to it. So I probably wasn't paying as close attention to as you were probably with your headphones on. Like, I was just singing the song at the top of my lungs.
Yeah, I was sucking it all in my brain, ready for this episode to discuss every nuance.
I did think that it flowed well, like the overall song flowed well, but there was definitely something off between the two voices. So I do think you're onto something, Tim.
Yeah. There we go. All right. Well, let's move on to the next track. This is track 17. This is Heart of Glass, which is the Blondie song. And of course, it has Debbie Harry on it. Now, one interesting thing is both Dolly and Debbie Harry have some kind of effect on their voices. I think trying to probably pay homage to the original a little bit. And to some extent, it's hard to tell which one's Dolly and which one's Debbie because the way with the effects on the voice and their vocals are very sort of similar sounding with that. It's actually pretty hard to tell them apart.
So what's interesting you say that. So earlier in the in the first episode, the first half of this episode, I said something and we were discussing auto-tune and Tim goes, and I said, well, there is one song, but we'll leave it for future reference. And Tim goes, I think I know what you're talking about. I was talking about this song. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're right. For me, I love this. I like this song a lot. I've always said that Debbie Harry is a person I never will sing, can't sing any of her music to save my life. It doesn't sound hard when you listen to like Blondie or anything like that, but to actually sing it and sing it well, it is difficult. It's the same thing I've said about Heart. Those are 2 artists I'll never touch. With that being said, it sounded cool-ish. It kind of made it kind of nice. But I wrote in my notes, starts out a little too slow, and I want the umph of this to rock harder. Still cool stylistically, but it sounds too poppy. Even the guitar riff sounds off. That's what's my notes. I'm sorry to be so technically difficult, but it just sounded less. It didn't hit the way the original Heart of Glass did.
Yeah, I mean the original is so iconic, and I mean this. It probably doesn't add anything to the original. Did the guitar riff sound off to you, or am I just not familiar with it, Tim? Something about it just didn't sound right to me. At the very beginning, the guitar riff is different to the original. When it gets into the song, it's as per the track. But yeah, at the very beginning, whoever's playing it is doing something a little bit different. And that might be what it is. It just sounded different than what I was expecting when I turned this song on. But I wondered why the choice of the auto-tune was... Like, I was trying to... Because, I mean, it is...
But in my mind, it's supposed to be, her rock album. So I just wanted this song to go a little harder. And that effect made it sound like a pop track to me.
Yeah, I mean, there are some other tracks as we come down which are sort of pop tracks. So, I mean, it's rock pop, sort of.
I know, but for this song, I feel like it could have been intense if they wanted it to be. If you heard that, that was me punching my own hand to try to emphasize intense, which I don't know why I did because you guys can't see me. Anyway, many times Tim holds up something and goes, and since this is an audio podcast, let me hold this up for you to see.
Well, we used to post little video clips to YouTube, but it didn't seem to get a lot of traction, so I stopped doing it, if I'm being honest.
I mean, why keep wasting your time if it's not getting the effect you want? But no, it was just funny because after I did that, I'm like, all they're going to hear is what sounds like me slapping. Anyway. But yeah, I don't know. My last quote was, "This missed the mark for me."
Well, there we are. Well, you go ahead and enjoy the original, but just be satisfied knowing that there is a Dolly version out there in the universe.
And I'll listen to it again because it's Dolly. It's not that it's bad. It's just not my favorite. That's all I'm saying.
And that is fair enough. Okay, all right. Well, let's move on to the next track. This is track 18. This is "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me," featuring Elton John. Now, there was a very famous cover of this with George Michael featuring Elton John, sort of I believe it was in the early 90s that came out. This, I would say, probably rivals that. This is actually a really good cover version of it. Now, again, it is slightly pitched up. So it's probably higher than what Elton would normally sing. But I don't know. I just thought this was a really good cover version of this song.
I literally wrote Sir Elton, top song, easily the top song on this album for me. It's great for Dolly because it's a story song. So everything I think of when I think of Dolly when she sings is like she's telling a story, even when she doesn't mean to. And it's because she's such a good songwriter. And she says that. She says that's who she is. But this song was kind of nice because it works with her so well because "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me" is a story. It felt like something I could hear her say. And Elton, if it is pitched up, I didn't really notice. And Elton he sounded beautiful. And just I literally wrote, "This is perfection." Like, they couldn't have done this version of this song any better, Tim. Like, no. I was absolutely in love with this.
Yeah, I mean, my notes say to me, great cover. And it was. I mean, it was really good. I think with Elton, if you're out there performing live and you're 20 tracks into a set, trying to sing things higher than they should be, it's probably not going to happen. But, you're in the studio. You can do a number of takes. You can try and sing it different ways. I think, you have the ability to do that in that context. But no, Elton sounded great. Dolly sounded great. This is a great cover.
And it was just like, I love the arrangement of it. There was parts that like are a little different than the original and just back and forth. I don't know. If I had to pick one song for them to listen to off of this album, Tim, this would be the one.
Yeah, I would recommend and endorse that.
All right. Next song.
Okay, track number 19. This is an original track. It's called "Tried to Rock and Roll Me," and it's featuring Melissa Etheridge. And Melissa Etheridge is another performer, singer-songwriter that I very much enjoy. I don't like her quite as much as Sheryl Crow, but she's right up there for me.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I felt that this song was interesting for me. I wasn't sure what exactly I was getting myself into. One thing that I noted in this was, and it dawned on me when I saw Melissa Etheridge's name, that I love she included so many women that on this album. Because a lot of times whenever you're looking at a rock album, everybody thinks it's going to be all men, but there's an equal amount of men and women on this album. Melissa Etheridge was in my episode I did about women who rock and how she kind of formed a lot of that. So I was really happy she was included in this. And I thought the ending of this song was really cute. And they did like a little kind of like edgier side of Melissa where she got to go to like her roots. And I wonder if she was playing the guitar on this or if somebody else was.
I don't know. I don't remember seeing her in the credits for playing guitar on it. I think it was whoever the producer got on and various session people. I mean, if you look on Wikipedia, it's got a list of every musician that played on it, and it's as long as your arm.
Of course. They always are. I was just curious because it had like a really nice, I like the way the guitar sounded in this. So I was curious as to who played it. Now, this is this is an original song, right? Because if it's a remake, I've never heard it. I wasn't sure how I felt about it lyrically as a song, but I thought it works really well for Dolly and Melissa together.
Yeah, it worked well. Like you mentioned about the end, the bit at the end. Melissa says, "Go on, Dolly, let's rock," and then Dolly says, "I still am rocking out, Melissa." I mean, it's a little bit
so
cheesy, but yeah,
it's very cringy, but it's cute. They sound like they're having fun. It would be even weirder if you found out they weren't actually together and they put those two bits together later.
Yeah, I would really like to see which ones of these tracks were recorded in person and which ones were just like remote sessions where files were emailed backwards and forwards.
Or faxed if you're Dolly Parton,
yeah.
as we've mentioned, and then someone has to convert it into an email for you. Anyway, that was a joke. If you guys didn't hear it in the first episode, Dolly still faxes.
As does most of the U.S. healthcare industry, but that is a story for another time.
I don't get it, Tim. What is this? Are you guys also riding on your dinosaurs to work? Moving along.
But there we are. And so are pages in the medical field as well. But
anyway.
but there you go. All right. Well, let's move on to the next track here. This is track number 20. And this is the Led Zeppelin classic, Stairway to Heaven. Now, Dolly has covered this before, and I think she's even performed it live in various concerts she's done over the years. She tried to get Jimmy Page and Robert Plant to cover this on this particular track, but she just couldn't make it happen. I think Robert Plant just doesn't want to do Zeppelin songs anymore, and maybe just Jimmy Page was just not available or couldn't make the session or whatever like that. And the reason that she covered this song is her husband Carl loves this song and thought, wouldn't it be cool if we can get Jimmy Page and Robert Plant to cover this with Dolly, but just couldn't make it happen.
Well, what the cool part is Lizzo and Sasha Flute are on it. And so for those who don't know, Lizzo, the singer, is the one playing the flute.
Yes, I didn't know that. I had that in my notes here.
Her flute is named Sasha. So for those who don't know anything about Lizzo, she actually was a classically trained flutist. What's the word? Flute player?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Whatever you call somebody.
Flautist, maybe a flautist.
Okay, well, whatever Tim just said, that one who plays a flute. That's what she started out doing before she was, moved into singing and things of that nature. So she's like really good at the flute, and she performs on stage a lot of times. At her concerts, she'll bring her flute out and play it. And so she calls it Sasha Flute. So I just thought it was cute that in the album, it says Stairway to Heaven, Dolly Parton, Lizzo, Sasha Flute is listed as one of the artists. And that's the name of the flute.
Yeah, I did wonder about that because I looked in the album credits and saw that Lizzo is the one playing the flute. And I did wonder why it said Sasha Flute.
That's her nickname for the flute. I thought it was funny they included it. I mean, I don't know about, I think it's just a play on it. But with that being said, this is a song, as Tim and I have mentioned many times, there's a set of songs that we hit skip when it comes on. This is generally a skip song for me. So I thought it was kind of cool that it was different because I've heard, I understand that her husband loves it and that makes sense why they wanted to get them on there. But I've heard the original so much. And Dolly sounded angelic almost in it, singing it. It was really nice. But for some reason, with the flute and her singing, Tim, it reminded me of a Christmas song. And I can't place it.
Yeah, and it's also been pitched up as well. It's not in the normal key. It's been taken up a tone or so.
Yeah, it reminded me of a Christmas song, but it also kind of gave a lot of dream vibes, like you were in a dream type thing, which the original kind of does that too, but it went even more over the top, I think.
I think so. And like I said, I've heard Dolly perform it before, so it's something she's very familiar with. So
it does sound cool if you've never heard it, though. I would give it a listen. I think the flute does add something. I thought it was cool.
Absolutely. But yeah, this one wouldn't be a skip for me, whereas maybe the original would be.
Exactly. I agree with you. And that puts it on high praise if I'm not going to skip it.
There we are. It gets the Joy Seal of Approval, the no skip guarantee.
There's going to be somebody out there who has that copyrighted that writes us a message to him. It'll be like the CD players that used to say they were no skip and they never were. So as soon as you moved, it's like skip.
Well, the thing is with the anti-skip CD players, it was very early digital storage, flash storage. and they normally the amount of skip memory they had was maybe a second or two, so it was probably doing its job, but you was expecting more.
Yeah. Well, I expected more, Tim, and I was the consumer. I'm kidding. I know. It's just a joke that like they would say in such big, bold letters, anti-skip, but you still had skipping.
Yeah, but I mean, I never had, well, actually, I had a CD Walkman once. When I was living in Chiswick and I was working in Acton, I used to just walk to work because it was quicker than driving there. And I had a CD Walkman for that commute. But that was the only one I ever had, really. I had a bunch of like regular Walkmans, but the CD Walkman was my one, and that one never skipped.
The first one I got was like the RCA one, I think, or one of those brands. And I was probably like 8 years old, and I was asking for it for Christmas. And me and my twin sister, Brandy, both got one. I like how I said that, like you guys don't already know that. But for those who don't know, both got one that year. And the first two albums I ever owned were that Sabrina the Teenage Witch album that I made you listen to, and Selena, the artist that I taught you about.
Yes.
And then the third album was Christina Aguilera. I remember that. And I got it for Christmas, and I was very, very, very excited. And I think I probably put the headphones on and listened to it nonstop for a good 72 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I was very excited. But I mean, I was 8 and I only had 3 CDs. So like I was just listening to the same thing on repeat. But it was the idea, Tim. I had my own CD player.
It was like, yes.
Yeah, finally. Anyway, so there you go.
There we are. Okay, well, let's move on to the next track here on Dolly Parton's Rockstar Part 2. So this is track 21. This is the classic combination of We Are the Champions, We Will Rock You, the Queen songs. Now, as a Queen fan, I can tell you one thing. They are performed the wrong way round. Because traditionally, when Queen would close out their set, they would start with We Will Rock You, and then We Will Rock You would then go into We Are the Champions.
I mean, maybe it was just an artistic choice. I did notate that too. I also think it's funny on my notes, Tim. Instead of writing We Are the Champions, I wrote We Are the Campions, like camping. That just made me laugh. But anyway, this is once again, like if I hear it and it's the Queen version, I probably am going to hit skip. But I did think it was cool how she kind of it looks like she was having fun. I mean, I like the setup of it, and that I like that it's going to be used for the 2024 Paris Olympics. So I think that's cool and makes sense. Maybe that's why she went with no, it doesn't make sense, actually. I was trying to figure out a way to justify the change in the song order, but I don't got it.
No, the other thing that's interesting for me, this track does not have any guests on it. And where is Roger Taylor and Brian May? They appear on everything. I mean, it's they've done collaborations before where they just send the stems, the original tracks over. This does not have them. I know they were touring around this time. Yeah. I mean, how difficult is it to record that?
I wonder too. That's a good point. I hadn't even thought about it till you said it, Tim. Didn't even dawn on me, but you're right. Why is she by herself?
Yeah, I mean, Brian May and Roger Taylor are still around, luckily, and they seem to be up for doing all kinds of shenanigans with guests, so why aren't they on here?
I mean, it's not like they're going to turn Dolly down. The only thing I could think of is you're right. They were touring. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe it just didn't work out.
Brian May needed to go with NASA to fix a black hole or something.
Yeah, then maybe there's a deep space pulsar that needed attention.
Roger Taylor was just sitting in a bar in London.
Very, very possibly. And also, the other thing about this track is she performed this at that Dallas Cowboys halftime show with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders dancing on it.
And the awkward where she couldn't get up on her podium.
Yeah, as we discussed in the previous episode, that was very, very weird.
It was, but she handled it well. But I thought it was cute how she had to keep kind of peeking around to see the audience because she wanted to see him so bad.
Exactly.
But she handled it with grace, of course, because she's Dolly Parton.
Well, of course.
Yes. All right. The next song.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what you thought of this, Tim.
Yeah, so track 22, another original track, Bygones. This is featuring Rob Halford, who was the singer from Judas Priest, who'd performed with Dolly at her Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction doing Jolene, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And this also features Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue. And also it features the guitarist John Five, who now is also in the Motley Crue.
See, I didn't even know that. I didn't know Nikki Sixx was on this. Huh. Mm-hmm. What I thought was, Tim, and I'm curious to know what you thought, I actually really liked this. I said I was surprised at how much I liked it. And I thought Dolly and Rob's voice were so interesting and almost like I don't know how to explain it. The way they sang together and everything surprised me, but it worked so well. And I love how in the middle there was like a breakdown and then it builds into the chorus. But overall, I was surprised that I really, really liked this, Tim.
Yeah, it was a good track, but I would think with Rob Halford from Judas Priest, I was expecting a little more metal.
I mean, that is valid. Kind of like I was saying earlier when I wanted to go a little harder, but maybe Dolly just didn't want to do metal. I don't know.
Now, that would be interesting if the next thing Dolly does a metal album. She's covering like Ride the Lightning and South of Heaven and stuff.
I mean, that would be cool. And she's got, that they would probably do it with her. Like anybody would sing with her, even people doing metal. I don't know, though. I was just surprised that I actually liked this. I liked their voices together. Not necessarily like who they are as people, but I thought they sounded well together.
Exactly.
And Rob has a very distinct voice. I said Rob like we're BFFs, like we know each other. Rob Halford has like a very interesting voice. And so I was shocked. If you are curious, go listen to it, guys. Like it'll surprise you.
Yeah, I was surprised, but I said I was expecting just a little bit more metal.
Well, we'll send Dolly a fax and let her take your notes in. Because obviously I have that number.
Exactly. All right, so let's go to the next track. This is track number 23. It's like, goodness me, how many tracks does this album have?
Yes.
And this is a track, My Blue Tears. And this is featuring Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran. And the interesting thing, this is a cover of a Dolly song, and it's from her album Coat of Many Colors from 1971. Now, I didn't know that when I was listening to it. I can't say I'd really recognized it too much. But when I was researching it, I was like, oh, really?
Yeah, I Googled it and it came up. But what was interesting to me was, Tim, at the beginning, could you tell if it was like a flute or bagpipes or there was like an instrument I could not pick out to save my life?
Yeah, I don't think it's bagpipes. It's either a flute or some kind of keyboard flute type thing.
My exact words were, is that bagpipes or a flute or what is that? Question mark. And then there were parts in it that I struggled to know who was singing which part. Because at the beginning, it kind of sounded like Dolly was singing both parts. But then different times I thought I could hear Simon Le Bon, but he didn't really sound like Duran Duran Simon Le Bon. So it was confusing.
Yeah, he has a very distinctive vocal style with Duran Duran, where, as I've said before, he's either singing in a major key over a minor song or singing in a minor key over a major key or a minor song. It's something like that. And that's what gives that very distinctive Duran Duran, Simon Le Bon sound. And here he's just singing completely straight. And yeah, there are a few points where you think, who is that? How's that working?
Yeah, and it was like, at one part, it sounded like the arrangement was Dolly layered on top of Dolly, maybe in different keys to give like some form of a harmony. But then at one point I was like, I actually think that's Simon Le Bon. But then he started singing. It was just interesting because I've never heard him sing in any other way than like you're saying, the Duran Duran style. And so it threw me off.
Yeah, but an interesting choice of a cover on her rock album where she's covering something from her Coat of Many Colors album, which is a country album.
I mean, it's a cool sounding song and it did kind of give rock vibes. But as this album's gone on, like you said, some of it comes I feel like she went a little bit more and more outside of the regular rock realm.
Yeah, I mean, it's
30 songs
loosely, it's loosely country.
Yeah. I mean, country and rock are a lot closer together. I mean, how many songs, especially where you play bands in Southwest Virginia, Tim, where you do a little bit of country and rock and your cover bands?
Exactly. I mean, that's what we are. We are some country, some rock, some southern rock. And I mean, and most of the bands around here are doing some combination of that.
There you go. That's the playlist if you guys ever want to start your own rock band in Southwest Virginia. And I can tell you, you want to put Journey on there. Let's see, Tim, what's the top bands they want? Oh, Tim hates this one, but we're going to put, Old Crow Medicine Show.
Yeah, Wagon Wheel, that's going to go
Wagon
on there.
Wheel's got to be on there. There might be some Purple Rain. Anyway, moving along. All right.
All right, so track 24, this is What's Up, originally done by the Four Non Blondes, written and sung originally by Linda Perry. And Linda Perry herself, who's gone on to be an amazing songwriter, producer, and, launched the careers of many people with her production and songwriting talents. She's featured on here singing, as I said, and she's playing acoustic guitar as well. So we have Dolly and Linda together at last.
Okay, so I have very distinct feelings about this, and I'm curious if Tim agreed. First of all, I think everybody and their cousin at this point has did a cover of this song.
Oh, I played this in my band at school, Utopia, and probably in 3 other bands after that. And the A, B minor, D of this song is... I'm just burnt out on it.
Burned into your brain until you die.
Oh, goodness me.
I mean, to be fair, and her and Linda Perry have been friends for years, but I said something about it. Dolly's voice sounds too nice. That's what I said. Where it says her, where it says like, I said, hey. Like, it's like supposed to be kind of aggressive. And I said, Dolly just sounds so friendly to me. So it just made it feel off. And then was it just me, or did it sound like the guitar and the singing were in sounded separated to me? Like I don't think they were definitely played together. Like Dolly's not playing and singing at the same time. For some reason, there was a disconnect between the singing and the guitar to me on this.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, this may speak to the fact that Dolly and Linda Perry never even met to do this. I mean, maybe they did. I don't know.
I don't know.
But it's possible that they didn't, given the amount of people that was on this.
Just if you have a second, Tim, whatever you like, if you go back and re-listen to this at some point, I'd be curious to see if you hear it. Just sounded exactly like you're saying. It sounded like they were recording in 2 different places. And so I would love to know if that's what it was, or if it's just like post-production that I'm hearing.
Yeah, maybe I'll go back and listen to it and just try and focus in on that little element there.
Yeah, but anyway, my overall is it sounded good, but Dolly's voice was a little too friendly. That would be me if I was trying to sing like rock music. People be like, her name is Joy. She can't sing rock music. Anyway.
All right, so we're going to the next track 25. This is You're No Good, which is a classic song cover. And this one features Emmylou Harris and, of course, my favorite, Sheryl Crow.
Will say, I initially said, where's Linda Ronstadt? And then wasn't this was a cover of Dee Dee Warwick originally, I think. This is like a song that's been handed down through generations. But I really, really like this. The arrangement, the layering sounded nice. There's like a piano outro at the end, which was kind of nice, but it lasted a little too long. Like it seemed to go on a little too long for me. But I really like this, and I would say out of the album, it's a top 3 for me.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought that Cheryl worked really well on here. Emmylou Harris worked really well. And Dolly did too. I mean, this is just a really good cover of a classic song.
And I think that there was in this one, like you were saying, I didn't hear any modulating. It feels very true to the original, because it was written for people who, Dee Dee Warwick had a very high voice too. So I really don't feel like they would have to. But it also sounded fun. Like it wasn't so serious. It kind of sounded like they were having fun. I was singing along to it when I listened to it. So I really like this song.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Well, that's all I got for that one is listen to it.
All right, well, let's go to the next one. So this is track 26. This is Heartbreaker. Now, this is featuring Pat Benatar, of course, is the original singer on the track, and Neil Girardo, who actually played guitar on the track originally. And they're both performing on this track with Dolly. Mm-hmm. Now, I thought this one, Dolly's vocals were superb. I
wrote that too. Fantastic. I said, I was asking, this is a guitar question, Tim, for you. Is that the original guitar riff or did they change it around? Do you know?
It's basically the original riff. It's not spot on original, but it's the same idea.
I just thought it was interesting because there's like kind of like a little kind of an echo sound they put over it. I noticed a few times, but I wrote Pat Benatar and Dolly's voices both sound like perfection. I said the higher parts in the unison weren't necessarily a harmony, but like Dolly's falsetto came through. She was hitting the high notes like, and you could hear her falsetto in a way I've never heard it before. I thought it was super cool.
Yeah, it was. It was said it was a very fine vocal performance from Dolly. I mean, I would maybe even listen to this over the original. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Now that you said that, I'm trying to. I mean, I like the original too, but I think those two. But I also think Pat Benatar's voice was really good with Dolly's too.
Yes.
They sounded wonderful together. Like it mashed so well. Because, not every person sounds, has like chemistry or their voices match really well on a track. And you can hear that difference in some of these, but I would put this one up there. And it's just cool to me because Dolly has a naturally high head voice, but you don't hear her falsetto come out. But when she was hitting those notes at the end, you could hear her falsetto over everything. And it was spot on amazing, just like perfect, pitch perfect.
Yeah, and Dolly also was very pleased with Neil Girardo's guitar playing because at one point she says, "Neil, that's some fine guitar."
My eye twitched a little, I'm not gonna lie. It's cute though. I like seeing her have fun. You know what I mean? If she's gonna do it, she might as well have fun with it.
Exactly. All right, well, let's move on to the next track 27. This is another original track. It's called Bittersweet, and it's featuring the legendary Michael McDonald.
Sorry, I'm laughing, but I just wrote, oh yeah, that's definitely Michael McDonald. Voice is, well, he's Michael McDonald. That's just how he sounds. And I said, I don't know how I felt about this, Tim. It was just weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, Michael McDonald's voice is so iconic. Whatever he sings just sounds like a Michael McDonald song. We have a Christmas playlist on the Spotify, which has maybe got 1,000 songs in it, and 12 of them are Michael McDonald. And whenever I put it on shuffle, one of the Michael McDonald songs always comes on, and it's just it's Michael McDonald.
It really is. And it's not to insult him. He, I like Michael McDonald, but he has a very distinct, soulful, I don't know how to put it in a term, but it's like his voice, if I could visualize it, it's very long. Like it's very broad the way he like says his syllables and stuff. Like he holds it out. Do you know what I mean? Like his mouth's got to be wide open when he's saying it, is what I kind of mean. But it still sounds like mumbling somehow. And it just sounded like a Michael McDonald song with a little bit of Dolly thrown in, like a spice over top periodically.
Yeah, Michael McDonald is soul music sung through your nose.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, and didn't we at one point like provide backing vocals for Steely Dan?
Very possibly.
I always thought that was interesting because the Doobie Brothers, of course, but Steely Dan, and I'm like, I can't imagine him being a backup vocalist because when you hear him, that's all you hear. I don't know. And I always think it's funny. Jimmy Fallon has like a list of like 3 people, if they ever make him on his show sing, that he does like interpretations of, or I guess whatever the word is, imitations, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's always, it's always Michael McDonald.
Yeah.
And then it's what's the band I'm thinking of? The Rolling Stones. What's his name?
Mick Jagger.
It's always Mick Jagger, and then I can't remember what the other one was, but it's always those two because they're such distinct. And his Michael McDonald's actually pretty good. But anyway, we can move on to the next one, I guess, Tim.
Okay. Now this next one, track 28. This is the comedy track of the album for me. This was just a bit odd, if you ask me. The track's called I Dreamed About Elvis, and it features Ronnie McDowell. It also features the Jordanaires being Elvis's backing singers. Now, I'm sure there's no original members of the Jordanaires left who perform with Elvis at this point, but it is the Jordanaires.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's like Ronnie McDowell is doing a really weird, bad Elvis impersonation all the way through. And then at some point, it morphs into the Dolly track, I Will Always Love You.
Yeah. So I was not super familiar with this Ronnie McDowell guy. I knew he was a country singer, but he became famous for a song called The King Is Gone. And like he did like all this Elvis tribute music. Like that's what he's known for. So that's why she put him in this, because in the 80s, that's what he would do in country music. And he did that weird, looks like a sideshow Vegas kind of Elvis sound to his voice and look. And I don't know much more about him, but that's what he's known for. There was a song in 1977 that called The King Is Gone, which is literally just a tribute to Elvis. So that's why she chose to put him in here. But I kind of felt bad because when they go into I Will Always, so at one point in the song, she's talking about dreaming of Elvis. And she's like, would it be great if you sang one of my songs, Elvis? And then Elvis is like, but I did sing your song, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes into I Will Always Love You because Elvis did a copy of it. And I wrote, Elvis sounded a lot better than Ronald. And I keep wanting to say Ronald McDonald. Ronald McDowell. I'm sorry, but Elvis is actually, I Will Always Love You. Elvis's version is it's actually good. And this sounds cheesy to me. It just sounded cheesy. Dolly sounds wonderful. It's her song. I love her version. It's my favorite version, but yeah.
Yeah, it is most definitely a comedy number is what it is. It's weird. It's odd in the context of the rest of this album to me.
Yeah, that's what I'll put it. I mean, it's kind of worth listening to because it's interesting to hear, but Dolly sounds great. And then you just have this subpar Vegas Elvis impersonator in the background.
Yeah, and that's a little bit strange to me.
Very strange. I don't know. Maybe her husband Dean or something really liked Ronald McDonald.
I mean, it could be.
McDowell, whatever his name is. Mr. Ronald McDonald.
Carl is a fan of the Big Mac, and we move on to the next track.
Okay, moving on.
All right. This is for the standard issue set. This is the penultimate track. And this is Let It Be, the Beatles song. It features Paul McCartney. It features Ringo Starr on drums. It features Peter Frampton. And it also features Mick Fleetwood, the drummer from Fleetwood Mac, on some kind of additional production, whatever that means. Ringo is definitely playing drums on this because it sounds like Ringo's fills. Yeah. So it's definitely Ringo. And of course, Paul is singing vocals with Dolly. It is pitched up again to suit Dolly, but it almost sounds like a gospel cover.
That's what Tim, I said, look, now she's preaching again. Because I said earlier, she sounds so like I don't mean preaching at you in a bad way. When Dolly tells a story, it sounds like a pastor or a preacher that's really got you engaged.
Yeah. That's
what I mean by that. So I said the same thing. I thought the arrangement was beautiful, first of all. They did a great job with the arrangement. Paul's backup vocals were they're so sweet. They sounded so nice in the background. Because he doesn't try to overpower her in any way. It's a very... you know what I mean? He's been in a band before, so he does very good at just like a backup vocal. I mean, not because, he sings this song by himself all the time now. He knows it like the back of his hand, but it was nice to let him kind of let her have a moment to shine, and the way he provided the backup vocals was cool. I said, I like the guitar pickup, but there was like a weird part where they changed the arrangement and they did like a back and forth, like callbacks almost, like she would say it and then he would say it, and she would say it and then he would say it.
Yeah.
I didn't like that part too much. I preferred the other part of the arrangement.
Yeah, I mean, that they're kind of just riffing because maybe she was with Paul and they were just going backwards and forwards and that kind of stuff.
But the opening arrangement part I liked the best. Not that that was bad. I don't know who was providing the guitar parts, but they all sounded lovely too. There was a nice little pickup right there before they did the callbacks.
That would be Peter Frampton.
Oh, you said that. So, yes, I did know who was providing. Thank you, Peter Frampton. I've heard of you before.
Yeah, he comes alive sometimes,
After midnight.
Exactly.
That's when all rock stars come alive, Tim. They stay asleep, and when it hits midnight, they wake up.
Or unless you're me and you're a part-time rock star and you get to about midnight and you're driving home and you're like, oh, I can't wait to get home.
I cannot stay up past like 10 o'clock anymore. I just can't. It's even harder now, Tim, where it looks like it's, the middle of the night at 4:30 p.m. every evening.
Well, it gets dark at 5:30. Well, I remember living in England, it used to get dark at like 3:30. So we're okay. I think we're all right with that, sort of.
So the weirdest thing, though, about living in Utah. So I'm assuming people understand this, but maybe they don't. Me and Tim are on the East Coast. Utah is closer to the West Coast. So we all know the sun sets in the east, right, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
And so it gets darker faster over here. Farther east you go, the more darker it gets. Generally, I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I've always been taught. But when I moved to Utah, I lived in Utah for 3 years, for those who don't know it. And in the summer in Utah, the sunlight is out till like 10:30 at night. It was the weirdest thing to be, because I would be like, oh, it's like 4:30. And I'd look down at my watch. It'd be 9 p.m. and the sun is just bright as ever.
Yeah. I remember being in Sweden in summer and it was like a summer's day at 11:45 p.m. And then within the space of about 20 minutes, it got dark. But it's so weird. It's like 11:30 at night and it's like the middle of the day.
Now, it wasn't quite that, like, because, there's parts of Alaska and, like, Sweden and, like, Norway and all that up there where it stays, like, light for, like, 6 months for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that's crazy. I don't know how I would handle that. That would just, like, throw my whole rhythm off. I bet they don't have near as many vitamin D deficiencies, though.
I would imagine not, no.
But then again, don't they have like a whole time period where there's no light too, where it's like 24 hours of darkness?
Well, it's not 24 hours of darkness, but it's like it's only light for a few hours a day or something like that in the winter.
I think 24 Hours of Darkness was the name of a movie.
I think it's an Iron Maiden album, probably.
Maybe that's what it is. I've definitely heard that before. Anyway, so well, how did we get here? Oh, yeah, talking about the sun.
There we are. All right. Well, let's close out the standard issue Dolly Rockstar album. And how would Dolly close this out? Of course, with Freebird. That's how you close every show when you're a rock star. You close it out with Freebird. And this is very faithful to the original, including all the solos that you would expect on Freebird. It clocks in at 10 minutes and 45 seconds, which is not the longest Freebird version on record, because I am the co-holder of that title, performing Freebird for 29 and a half minutes.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, I mean, even we were getting bored with it in the end. But this features Lynyrd Skynyrd, or what remains of Lynyrd Skynyrd. Whoever's currently in the Lynyrd Skynyrd touring band features on this. And also members of the Artemis Pyle band. Artemis Pyle being the original drummer for Lynyrd Skynyrd. So you're bringing back together the old Skynyrd, the new Skynyrd, and Dolly.
Well, I honestly are there members of Lynyrd Skynyrd still touring?
Yeah, there's nobody left out of the original Skynyrd in the band. The very last person passed recently, but the singer is the brother of the original singer, and people have come and people have gone. It's Skynyrd in name. They've been flying the Skynyrd flag, but nobody that was in that original band or was in the plane crash is still in the band anymore.
Well, yeah, because that makes sense, because I know Ronnie Van Zant obviously died in the play. Anyway, we'll get over it. But that just surprised me. I just didn't know they were still touring.
Yeah, they're still going. They'll tour forever.
What can I say, Tim? The money keeps you going, When
Absolutely.
the money keeps coming in, you keep going. But anyway, moving along, this is a song that I was like, I'm doing it for Dolly. I'm doing it for Dolly, because I do kind of have my, I see Freebird and I'm like, nope, I'm going to skip that. And when I was listening to it, I wrote it here. Hey, Tim, how many times have you actually played this guitar part?
Well, when I played in Rough Justice, we closed every gig with Freebird. And then when I played in the band I played previous to the one I'm in now, here we played Freebird. So I've played it so many times, and every variation on the long solo and stuff, and trading licks with the other guitar player and every variation of that. So I'm not quite as burned out on it as that other song that we will never speak of, but it's getting up there. But mind you, I haven't played Freebird for a long time. The last time I actually played it is when I made that online video with the old members of Rough Justice during the lockdown.
Fair. So I put on here the piano part was nice, and Dolly sounded beautiful singing this. Like, it was a great arrangement for her voice. Yeah. And I wonder, was that Dolly singing all the female sounding parts? Because there was a part where it sounded like it was like dubbed on top of each other. It sounded like multiple females were singing, and I couldn't tell if Dolly was singing all of that, but I feel like she has to, but I don't know if there was any backing vocalists that weren't like credited or something.
Yeah, I don't know whether members of Lynyrd Skynyrd or the Artemis Parr Band don't have backing singers, and they could have been singing along with Dolly, but yes, Dolly's vocal was very strong on this.
So that part I couldn't understand. That part I was trying really hard to, but I will say, it was like the arrangement and nice. It added kind of a fresh spin hearing somebody else sing it, which is always wonderful. I will say 10 minutes is still too long for me. About 9 minutes, I was ready to hit stop. And it's nothing to insult Dolly. It's kind of the same. It keeps going. You know what I mean, Tim? The same guitar just over and over and over. And so I was like, okay, this is cool. But at some point I needed to end. I can't imagine going to a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert, because I feel like their version would probably be like 15 minutes long.
It's probably this kind of idea. It's probably 10 or 12 minutes long at this point.
But with that being said, I think it's a cool way to end the album too. It was a nice, fun way to end the album.
I mean, that's how you close out a big rock show, is by doing Freebird. I mean, that's what Dolly did with this album. But that is the end of the standard album, but nothing can keep Dolly down when she starts doing stuff. So I'm not going to discuss these additional tracks other than just mention them, but there are various variations of this album that have additional tracks. So there was a download version of this album that you could buy from the official Dolly Parton store, Rockstar store, or whatever it was. That had a cover of 2 Tickets to Paradise with Dolly singing with Eddie Money, and also a cover of her song Jolene with Måneskin, I'd imagine.
Måneskin, yeah.
Yeah, because it's an A with a double. I should know it's Swedish. It's Måneskin. And then HSN had a version of it, which had Hit Me With Your Best Shot featuring Eddie Schwartz, Mama Never Said, and Rockin' It live. And then there was a Vols edition. I don't even know what Vols is.
Tennessee Vols.
What's that?
Tennessee Vols is a basketball team, I think, or football team.
Okay. See, I wouldn't know that. It's sport. I have no idea.
I'll explain why I know that in a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that has a live version of Rocky Top. So this has just got more tracks than you could ever imagine, and I'm sure at some point they'll come up with another expanded edition with 10 more Dolly Rockstar tracks on it. She just can't stop when she starts.
Well, and like when you listen to it on, I was listening to it on the Spotify at the bottom. When you scroll down, it's like, here's all the merchandise you can buy: Rockstar T-shirts and hats and pre-orders, and
it's everything you want. I mean, this is just it's amazing. It's a shame she's never going to perform any of this live, really, because I think outside of things like the one-off thing she done with the Dallas Cowboys and all that, I can't see her going back on tour. She's very old at this point, and though she's a vibrant lady and a super smart lady, and she can sing great. When you're older, touring is hard.
Yeah, and why? She's probably like, I don't have to. I have enough money. Like, why?
Yeah.
If I were Dolly, I'd be like, for what? So I could just be miserable for a year because this is hard work. I've already got millions. But what I was going to say, Tim, is there's a story about Dolly Parton and why I know the Tennessee Vols that we will end this episode with. Okay. So I have said many times that my family has really weird luck when we go on trips together. There was one year we were going to Dollywood. Mm-hmm. Dollywood. For those who don't know, that is the theme park Dolly owns, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Tim has been there many times, and we've both discussed it. It is a treat that I've probably been to 15 times at this point in my life, easily. Yeah. Anyway, so my family decided we were going to go on a trip to Dollywood. We get in the car. It's fall. It was kind of late summer, early fall. Well, there are 2 ways to get to Gatlinburg from where we live. You can go the scenic route or the non-scenic route. And if you go the scenic route, you're going up over the mountain. For whatever reason, my dad decided this would be the time, Tim. We were going to go the scenic route. We never did this. Well, I said it was fall. So we get on the mountain, and there are thousands of cars on the same mountain as us just stopped. Because It was the national weekend for the Sightseeing Club, the Fall Foliage Club of America. And there were hundreds of people on the mountain with us looking at the leaves turn. So, first thing that happened in this story, our van overheated because we were stuck on this mountain. I remember having to go to a gas station and get antifreeze because it was overheating. And anyway, so we finally, after spending 6 hours on the same mountain, we get over the mountain, get into town. It is late at night. It wasn't supposed to be late at night, but it ended up late at night because, we traveled and we were waiting on a mountain. So we go to get a hotel. My parents never in a million years thought anything of it. We went to 6 different hotels before they finally found a room. We were debating on sleeping in our car because guess what? There was a major Tennessee Vols football game in town at the same time. So not only was there the fall foliage people, every Tennessee Vols fan, which is it's a college football team. We're in town. So we literally, me and Brady were probably 10, 12 years old at this time. We literally spent, I think, probably till 1 a.m. They finally found one room open. And I remember as they were going in, another couple went in before them. And the guy came out and went, I got one with the key. My dad was like, okay, I'm hopeful now. Because we were just going to sleep in the vehicle at some point if we couldn't find anything. But that's why I know the Tennessee Vols. And that is the same trip. If you guys don't know, there is it's like a skyline thing that you ride, Tim, that like rides you over the sky. You know what I'm talking about in Tennessee, up the mountain. I was riding on it with my dad, and they take a picture of you as you're going up. A bee stung me on the hand. So in the picture, I have my little hands because I was little and I had to hold on. One hand is 3 times the size of the other hand because it was swollen because a bee stung me while we were there. So you just see me, and there's nothing we could do. I'm in the sky. I just had to deal with the pain.
Oh, dear.
There you go. There's the end of my story.
And on that bombshell, we will leave this episode. Joy, do you have anything for the people?
Be nice.
Yeah. Just be kind to everyone you meet. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.